Hey, how's it going, you guys? My name is Demize, and we finally got it. We finally got an actual trailer for the big 1.3 update, and just like the 1.2 trailer, it seriously left me in awe on how amazing and completely insane this game looks when you compare it to where the game started out just 4 years ago with what, like 300 items? So yeah, it's been a fun ride watching this game grow, and I'm also really glad that we actually got this trailer, as I was getting worried we wouldn't get one with the update being released less than a week away now, and apparently might have not even been possible if it weren't for Ymir, who ended up making this for us, which I think is pretty neat, as it just shows how well connected the developers are to the community, and how much they understand how hyped everyone is for yet another massive free update, which we really do appreciate. So this video is going to be a breakdown or an analysis of the new things that I saw in this trailer, and because there's seriously so many new things here that there's just no way for me to cover it all, I think it will make for a much better video if I pick out and talk about a few things here and there that I can actually speculate about, instead of pointing out at every little thing and saying, yeah, this thing right here, this looks amazing, but I have no idea what it is or what it does. So you really wouldn't learn much from that statement at all, and while that could probably be said about a lot of the stuff in this trailer, I'll try to keep it at a minimum as much as I can and actually try to provide some more educated discussion that could continue on to the comments, I hope, where I will of course be replying to as many as I can, as I usually do. In this opening scene, we have a very peaceful environment, and Red is running along using a fancy new golden bug net, which we also see in the last scene of this trailer, so we'll talk more about that then. We then cut to a fisherman on the edge of the corruption and the snow biome, and he seems to fish up what looks like a corruption themed crate, which is pretty neat, and we also see what I'm guessing is some type of new weapon above the fireplace, as well as another new item on display right behind him, which could either be some sort of bait or just some other random item. And if you didn't notice it already, there's actually smoke coming out of the chimney, which is pretty cool for all you guys that are into building, as you'll actually have a legit chimney now. In the next scene, we have another well put together building that seems to have a certain ancient Greek or Roman theme to it that goes along with the armor that the player is wearing, and also goes along with the Medusa head trophy, which is relevant to something else later on in this trailer that I'll bring up again. But the other major thing in this scene is that we finally get to see our first example of NPCs actually fighting back and defending themselves, which was something that was announced in a spoiler a while ago, and we will get to see more of this with other NPCs later on in this trailer. And now we go to a little alchemy outpost with a new alchemy station that we've seen before, and a few other new items here and there, but more importantly, the player is riding a fancy looking slime mount with a dyed pet, which is really cool as it just adds to more possibilities for customization, which we'll also see more of later on in this trailer. And now for something completely different, we see a player with what I'm guessing is the lower tier armor or vanity that comes from the Martian Madness event, as the headpiece looks like the helmet from one of the lower level mobs that we saw in the teaser video, but he is wielding a laser machine gun and is riding some weird looking wolf or alien mount, which is cool as I believe it is the first time we get to see new weapons being used on a mount, although it has been teased for a while and we also saw it before on a minecart. Now we're taken to the entrance of the dungeon, which is similar to what we've seen before in one of the first few spoilers, except that only 2 of the cultists are actually worshipping the altar, and this video actually reveals what it summons, and you guessed it, it happens later on in this trailer. Alright, so the title card for the next few clips is Explore and Conquer New Lands, and I don't believe that this indicates in any way that new planets are going to be a thing, because I did see some people speculating this, and I guess hoping for this. But I just don't see how that's possible with our current knowledge of Terraria world generation and its limitations. But I'm not exactly sure how what this looks like underground area will be unlocked or generated later on in your game progression, so maybe you guys have some better ideas for that. But what I'm thinking is that you're just unable to break into this area because it's made out of marble or granite, which could be a higher level block and you can't just break it until you have the proper gear for it. Or maybe I'm just overestimating the importance of this granite and marble biomes, and it's totally something you can access immediately, so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But what we can see is, in my opinion, some of the cooler looking enemies that we've seen so far from the 1.3 update, with these granite mobs trying to attack this new skeleton NPC, but he ain't having any of that, and once again we see NPCs actually doing something and fighting back instead of just walking around in circles helpless. And then we see his rescuer wearing some fancy new bone or skeleton armor and throwing out spears that actually stick into these new enemies, which just adds a little more realism within the game that we've been seeing more and more of, instead of just like breaking instantly and disappearing, which is what I would have expected in the Terraria from a couple years ago, but instead I'm pleasantly surprised. The other new thing that we get to see in this section is the yo-yo in action for the first time, as it's going to be a legit melee weapon in the game, but I'm still curious if we'll be able to perform any cool tricks with it, and I mean, come on, we have to be able to, right? And one last thing for this section is that we get to see him kill an enemy called the Granite Elemental, which Redigit actually asked for name suggestions in a profile post, and it seems like he ended up liking the elemental part of that name. And also I just want to acknowledge the neat spinning coin animation that we have seen before, but it is clearly shown here. Alright, so now we see a Medusa enemy being guarded by 2 armored skeletons, which has me very curious, as I don't think she's a big enough deal to warrant the boss trophy that we saw earlier in the video, unless there's something more to her that we haven't seen just yet, or they may have changed how trophies work, as we do see the player killing her very easily, although the stone debuff animation was pretty cool, and he is also wearing some new armor, and also some new either dyed wings, or possibly wings that are crafted from the Mothra that we see later on in the trailer. He's also using a new light providing item that you can see is a small lantern that is floating in front of him, and I always do like to see these type of things being added as they are quite useful in my opinion. We then get a quick glimpse of what could possibly be more mythological creatures with a strange looking serpent or mermaid enemy, a giant worm, scorpions, and some sort of zombified ice creature. And then we see this player actually fighting some of them, and I'm very curious about some of his minions because he has quite a few of them, and I think we may be seeing some sort of new mechanical boss minion, as well as possibly even a crimson minion or a pet. We also see him use some sort of alien attack weapon that charges up and shoots out a blast, which is pretty cool if you want to solidify that Iron Man look, or I suppose Samus for a Metroid, which is probably what it's actually referring to. And now we get to see some of the revamped invasions, which includes the pirate invasion that is way more intense now with that giant ship dropping cannonballs on you, and of course the solar eclipse, which we did learn about in a previous spoiler. But we also get a more complete look at all the information indicators on the right side, which is very useful as it provides quite a lot of info about the area surrounding you, including the number of special enemies nearby, which is really awesome. And we also get a look at another anti-gravity grappling hook, which we first saw in Alien version before in the Meow Mirror video teaser. We then cut back to the alchemy station being overrun by the revamped goblin invasion enemies, which is nice that they're getting some love too, but we also get to see the Dryad in action with some sort of spell that seems to be protecting herself, which we also get to see some other examples of NPCs doing this a little bit later. The other things that I want to point out in this quick little clip is of course the awesome unicorn mount and the really cool looking staff, as well as the helmet, which looks like a variation of what we've seen before. And now we get to see the Martian Madness event again, but we actually get to see the Dryad activate her spell thing, which I can't quite tell exactly what triggers it, as I first thought it would just be running throughout an entire invasion event or a boss battle, but seeing her activate it halfway through the Martian event here kind of contradicts that assumption, so I guess it might just be a temporary thing that she does every once in a while. We also see what looks like the mining mount flying around from a previous spoiler, but he is either using a laser machine gun or it is actually a different mount that has a mounted laser gun, which would be really powerful, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And here we finally get to see expert mode in action with some of the pre-hardware bosses getting new mechanics, and also once again the Dryad doing her thing, and also possibly the nurse version of this, which is either just healing herself or also nearby friendlies, which would be even better. This next part is kind of interesting as he defeats Duke Frishon, but instead of dropping some actual items, he drops a treasure bag, which I don't know if it's specific to this boss or if it's going to be the new standard for all the bosses, but I'm just curious why the reason for this change is, as I'm sure there's a good one, otherwise I wouldn't have wasted time implementing it, and once again this is probably one of the situations where it's super obvious why, we just don't know yet. He also has a neat little UFO pet or minion, and of course there is a few new items in his hotbar that I can't say much about simply because I don't know anything about them, other than that bow, which as you saw was quite fantastic. And now we finally get the reveal of what the cultists have been trying to summon, which is this new boss called the Solar Pillar, and he seriously looks like nothing we've ever seen before in Terraria, with a crazy shield force field around him that really looks just incredible, and he seems to be attacking in multiple locations with different biome themes, at least 3 that we know of, which is really awesome. The player himself also looks pretty cool with some new underworld weapons that we saw some of before, and also some great looking wings, which I'll definitely be going after. And now after all that craziness, we get to settle down and look at some of the new features that they've added, which includes the new equipment tab in your inventory, which he is currently using the pet penguin, the lantern light that we saw earlier, a default minecart, which I assume we can switch out for some of the new minecarts, another dyed summoning item, and also a grappling hook. And of course we have a ton of new dyes and furniture items that we can see on the screen, as well as some new boss trophies and a new armor that we haven't seen down at the bottom, as well as this awesome new Duke Frishon mount. We also get to see the camera mode in action for the first time, which I was a little bit worried about, but it does look very intuitive and like a very smooth process, so that's great to see of course. And we also get a glimpse of the achievement interface, as well as what some of these achievements are, so if you're lucky enough, your idea might have been picked. And they also touch on Steam integration once again, where you can invite players to your server and also support cloud saves, but we also get to see a possible new wiring mechanics here with a pun on the cloud saving, which is honestly good to see as we haven't really seen many additions to the wiring system since it was first introduced, and so I'm sure the new surge of people that have been pushing the current system to the limits with hoiking will be very pleased to see this. And so for the final scene, we see Redigit using his golden bug net catching what looks to be a golden worm, and I really don't know if this has any special meaning to it like the truffle worm did with the Duke Fishon boss, but regardless, Ymir trolls him with a portagun and once again sends him to his demise in the dungeon. Get it? Because I said demise and that's my name, you know? Yeah, no, yeah, alright, I'll just stop. Well, man, it is really early in the morning right now, but the video must go on. Alright, so now that I'm done with the actual trailer, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about some of the other announcements that came along with it that you probably want to know about. So for the first thing, the Mac and Linux versions will still be coming and they will have all the new stuff from the 1.3 update, but it won't be at the same time as the PC version, which if you didn't already know will be released on June 30th. It will instead be coming in the following weeks after the initial PC release, as they want to ensure a smooth launch, so just be patient and you will be rewarded for it with a hopefully problem-free experience on these new platforms. As for the console and mobile versions, you'll probably have to be even more patient as 505 Games and the actual developers, which are Engine Software and CodeGlue, can't even get started on porting over all the new content until it is finalized on the PC version. So considering how much time it took them to move over the 1.2 content and subsequent updates, which they aren't even fully caught up yet, we'll be lucky to start getting some of the new 1.3 features this year, unless they've learned and improved from porting over all the 1.2 stuff and maybe pump out smaller updates faster instead of waiting to push out everything all at once later on in the future. And one last thing that might be the most important of all is this little tidbit of information that Cinex dropped on us, which is the fact that we actually have not seen the final boss of the game yet, so I suppose you can speculate away as of what it could be, as they've denied time and time again the possibility of Cthulhu, but it could end up being another mythological monster, which would make sense considering all of this new ancient Greek lore that it seems to be coming as seen in this trailer. So yeah, that'll do it for this video, and I'm sorry if I sounded more tired or more boring than normal, but you should definitely keep an eye out on my channel as I will be posting a ton of videos covering as much as 1.3 as I possibly can, so make sure to subscribe for that, and of course leave any speculation that you may have about this update or something that I might have missed in the trailer in the comments below, and yeah, have a nice day.